What up, what up, what up? This is Tania, aka the Cool Auntie, and this is the Cool Auntie podcast. Y'all gotta forgive me for the tone. I know I'm not my usual upbeat self. First and foremost, happy Father's Day to all the fathers who are checking in. Speaking of, I got some really bad news last week that someone who has been a father figure to me, I got news that he died last week. Again, y'all know how I feel about fathers and dads, and so this is always going to be an area where I believe that God has called me to just share my experience with, and so the man, his name was Mr. Bokum. Mr. Bokum, he ran this program called Campus Connections, which is like a college, it's an HBCU college tour program. And so y'all know I'm originally from Philly. And so I did Upper Bound when I lived in Philly. But then when I moved to Charlotte my junior year, I ended up being a part of this program called Campus Connections. I knew I wanted to go to an HBCU since I was a little, because of my Aunt Jackie, my own aunt, my cool auntie, Aunt Jackie, was really big on exposing me to HBCU culture and like just Black culture. So, I wanted to go to an HBCU for a while. And so Mr. Bokum was special because for a lot of reasons. And so people don't even know this. I don't share a lot of stuff about me. And so Mr. Bokum was over this program. Mind you, I had just moved to Charlotte. I didn't have any friends, let alone Black friends, because I wasn't in a Black area, or the area that I was in, it wasn't as many Black people. And so I was struggling to make friends, but also I was still adjusting to the Southern life. And so I met Mr. Bokum, and he was this super jolly, he was just a happy, happy man. And again, I was in a space where I think in hindsight, I don't know if I necessarily appreciated him as much. But it didn't stop him from loving on me, y'all. This man, from the first time he met me, he let me know how special he thought I was and how intelligent he thought I was and just how amazing. Like, this man, you would think I was his daughter, the way he used to brag on me. And it's crazy because the program, I couldn't even afford to go. I had met him. He came to do a presentation at the school. I thought it was great and I was interested. But then when he told me how much it was going to be, I was like, I ain't got that. Sorry. And then he ended up reaching out to my mom. And the next thing that I know is that I don't know if I got sponsored or what happened, but he let me into this program, which gave me front door access to like literally every HBCU in the East Coast. And he told my mom it's because he believed that I was special. And for me, that wasn't a thing that I heard, especially from a man. And so that was him. I even think about and being in that program, he was always making me speak and present awards and just do stuff. I would never want to do it, but he would make me. And because I liked him so much, secretly, I would just do it. When it was time for me to apply to schools, he would march into the office and make sure that he let everybody know, listen, this girl is everything. You need to give her the best that you got. And literally just being in that program, mind you, never meeting this man, only being in that program for a year, I ended up applying to 14 schools. I got into all 14. I got 11 scholarships and 7 or 8 full rides. And I know he did, and I won't tell you what school he wanted me to go to. I ended up choosing Central or NCCU. But and I know he didn't want me to go. That wasn't what he was rooting for, but he was just always, and I got a full ride. He was just so happy, always so proud of me. And I made it my business every time he came. So even like after that, when I started school, every year he brought the students for a visit. And every year he would call me. And no matter what I was doing, I would stop what I was doing to make sure that I spent time with the group. One year my sister was in it. And so I still came to campus, but I always made time for him because he was just such a great man. A great man. I think, and you're probably like, Tania, why are you even mentioning this? I think, number one, I'm feeling away because I feel like he was so influential, especially in light of Father's Day. He was so influential to me. And it's crazy because, like, you pray for something and you ask God for something and then he gives it to you. And then we get so caught up in it not being like what we thought it was going to be that we mismanage it, And it's crazy because I was just talking about him. But I really wish that I got to tell him how much I appreciate him seeing me before I saw me myself. And just for his love, for him loving me like I was his daughter. And so I'm a little emotional because I wish I would have gotten to tell him that. I know in spirit he hears me and he knows, but it's something about giving a person their roses when they can smell them that matters. And so just on this Father's Day, and like this Father's Day, I want to shout out Mr. Boca because he was a father figure to me at a time where I needed that guidance. And I do appreciate him very much because he helped me break a lot of generational curses. And you're like, Tania, why are you bringing this up? Because y'all know I don't be just sharing for the sake of sharing. Okay, y'all know I keep my business. But it made me start thinking about purpose. I was going back and looking at some of the comments from last week and just the things because I love my friends, the ones who do tap into the podcast and kind of get to experience it online. Because when we talk on the phone, they're always bringing up things that like they've heard or like that they looked more into, and just very affirming. And so, as we're in this space of just talking about purpose, just in the different interactions, I realized that we all really just have a really flawed view of what purpose is. And so today I think sometimes we confuse purpose with potential a lot. And so I don't want to be with y'all too long again, knowing that it's a holiday. But I wanted to spend today just kind of talking about what purpose is and what it ain't. If y'all are cool. Before we dive too deep, and I want to kind of get in, there's some time later on we talk more about how does God reveal purpose to you particularly, but I wanted to at least specify what it is and what it ain't today. And so I know the number one thing that we've already recognized, and like I think I mentioned last week, is just this idea that purpose is about being, not doing, right? That idea of human being, not human doing. And just like I think about Mr. Boca, it wasn't necessarily about what he did for me. So him being a career counselor, him running this program, that was very helpful, right? It was helpful. It was great. But it wasn't about that for me with him. His purpose in my life was who he was as a man and the influence that he had in my life, right? Which just affirms this idea that it's beyond what you're able to do. But it's who are you, right? And who you're able to be. I think number two, especially when I think back to the complexity of last week, and I try my best to make that as simple and as clear as I could, but even in it, it's just so layered and so much to get and shove into an hour. But it's this idea that development and purpose and this idea of self-discovery, it's a jungle gym. It's not a ladder. I think when we think of purpose, we loop purpose into like success and money and like all these big aspirational goals. And we treat it almost like it's a final destination. Like it's the end all be all when I get to purpose. It's like purpose isn't a place that you arrive at. It's something that you walk in, that you walk into and you walk into continually, which is why it's a jungle gym, right? Where you're constantly moving up, around, over. It's so nuanced because you're constantly changing and and as you're evolving, purpose evolves with you. And so I think the common misperception is that purpose is like this finite, this end all be all. And it's so much more nuancey than that. And that it's more of a jungle gym. Number 3, I would say, and one of the myths about purpose and what it is and what it ain't is, it's not a microwave. It's an oven. Do you know? And I know as somebody who can be very impatient, I can be very, very impatient. Definitely getting better than I was before, but I am when it comes to patience. But many times we want purpose to be a thing that God's just going to drop to us in a dream. He's going to reveal to us. He's going to slide it. He's going to scratch it on a piece of paper and just slide it your way. It's like, no, it's an oven thing. It has to bake, right? It has to bake. You have to bake. That's why it's so important. Again, like from the previous weeks, it's so important for you to know who you are, right? I think God's intentional. Even Jesus, you think about the Bible, even though Jesus kind of discovered some things at age 12, he still had to submit to time. And it says that, and he didn't really start walking into what he was called into until the age of 30. So from 12 to 30, Jesus was baking, right? He was in the oven. He was stepping into who he was supposed to be able to carry out purpose. And I think the same rules apply to us. And that our purpose is an oven, not a microwave, and that some things have to bake in us. God has to work some things in us. Things have to happen in here before you can produce something. Especially because I feel like, which leads to number 4, is that purpose is revealed. It's not created or discovered. I hate when I see that thing. It's like, discover your purpose or create, or people are creating their purpose and like they're trying to mix and match their talents and their abilities and their passions to make this purpose. And purpose isn't a thing that you create or discover. Purpose is revealed. I think many a time it's because, and I guess I will leave it, at least leading to the number 5, is that because purpose is a street, not a cul-de-sac. And that many a times we think purpose is about us. What am I here to do? My ultimate fulfillment, where I should be and it's all I. We live in a very I, but purpose ain't about you. You weren't created for you. Which means that when God gives us purpose, and I won't say you, when God gives us purpose, right? Because it's a we thing. When God gives us purpose, it's because it's not supposed to stop with us, right? I think back to even Mr. Bolcom. Through his purpose, he was a street for me. He was through my encounter and my interaction with him, he took me to a new place in my life, right? It didn't just end with him like a cul-de-sac. Many of us, we want God to bless us with things. And God's like, I'm not going to bless you if it's going to stop with you. It's like, why am I going to make you rich if you're not going to give back? Why am I going to give you purpose if you're not going to use it to help other people? Right? It's this idea of purpose being a street and a cul-de-sac. And I think because of that, he reveals it in due time. So you already had purpose when you were born. He said, before you were born, I knew you. And in him knowing you, not only did he know you as a person, but he knew what you were going to grow up to become. He knew what you were going to accomplish. He knew what impact you would make in the world. He knew. He knew, which is why he made you, you. And so I think what he does is that he reveals it versus you discovering it. And I feel like that's a word for somebody right there, because you're putting this pressure on yourself to go find something that God is saying, if you just focus on being, focus on becoming right now, and I'll reveal it to you when it's time. It's that oven, right? That oven, that the microwave, where like Tania, I want to know it. I want to find it. Ain't if you're looking for it, that's how you know it ain't time for you to have it yet. You know? Because almost like, again, going back to the idea of a tool. Don't put a tool in my hand until I know how to use it. Because you start making a mess. You know what I'm saying? And so I want to make sure before we dive too deep into what purpose is today and talking about what's not purpose, I wanted to be clear about what purpose is, at least as far as how the Cool Auntie defines it. And I said, number one, purpose is about being and not doing. Number two, purpose is a jungle gym, not a ladder, right? It's a process. It's not a final destination. It's an oven, not a microwave. It takes time. It needs to bake. You have to bake, right? Because it's revealed. It is not discovered. It's not created. It's not found. Because ultimately, God uses purpose for us to be a street for people, not a cul-de-sac or a dead end, right? And again, I think hopefully that gives somebody like some sort of peace of, I don't have to look what's already coming to me or coming for me, right? I also was seeing a lot of, especially in some of the comments, is people talking about, well, Tania, what about all the things that I can't, like my talents, my skills, my passions? How do all those things tie into purpose? And I think, and it's so crazy because I think also too, so many quotes are very misleading. You know, you follow your passion, it'll take you to your purpose. That's not, I don't think that's true. I don't want to critique people who have said it, but I'm just like, I don't know about that, okay? Because I am passionate about my dog and taking care of my dog. It does not mean I'm meant to be a veterinarian. You know, I love tea and coffee. Don't mean I'm supposed to be a coffee maker. And so I think sometimes like that saying is I love to sing, right? I'm passionate about dance, but I am not Chris Brown's backup dancer, okay? I mean, I can be, but that's not where purpose is for me. And so I think it's so important to clarify what some of those things are so that we don't confuse what isn't purpose with what is. Now, don't get me wrong. I do believe that these things, and for the sake of today's conversation, and just how I talk about them, period, I call them the itties. I'm going to tell you why I call them the itties. But I think the itties are important because they do directly align with purpose. I do believe that the itties align with purpose, and that purpose is ultimately where all of your itties connect. And I'll explain that. Like itties, Tania, what are itties? Itties refer to the things that people tend to confuse with purpose, right? And that is capability, ability, capacity, quality, and vitality. AKA the itties, right? Itties. These are the things that people think, oh, because I'm active in these areas, it's purpose. And it's dangerous. So I want to make sure we clarify those today. I think the first thing, and so I want to use an example as we walk through them so you can understand the difference. And even if you don't after this, I encourage you to go up and look, because most people don't even really define these words. You assume that you know them because you've heard them enough. But I definitely encourage you, if these definitions don't necessarily align with you, to do your own research and to understand the difference between them. But I wanted to at least give you my version as well as an example. Right. And so the first thing, so for the sake of this example, let's use writing. OK, and so first and foremost, everyone has I won't say that, I want to be mindful of using terms like everyone. Most people have the capability of writing. Capability, right, refers to the opportunity to do something, right? Technically, we all have the opportunity to write. All you need is a writing utensil, so a pen, a marker, a crayon, a pen, a pencil, whatever you need, and paper or something to write on, something to write with and write on. You can use sidewalk chalk. You know what I'm saying? You can use whatever. You can use a bottle of ketchup in a sidewalk, right? Capability just refers to having the opportunity to be able to do it, right? Whereas you have ability, which is to actually be able to do a thing. So whereas capability might be I can write, ability refers to I am a good writer, right? So everyone has the opportunity to write, right? But having the ability means that you have the skill, the talent to actually perform that thing. People tend to confuse those two, and I think the biggest distinction between them is that there's power versus potential. Capability is all about potential. Just because you are capable of something doesn't mean that you can actually do it. Right? It's all possibility. It's all potential. Like you have the potential to get it done. Doesn't mean you actually get it done. Ability means that you can do it. Right? So I can write versus I'm a good writer. Okay? Stay with me because it does get a little bit more complex as we kind of go along. Because not only do you have capability, and most people stop there. They look at, okay, well, to me, this is what I'm capable of doing, right? Here are all of my options. Here's all of my potential. And then ability. Here are the things that I can actually do. I can actually perform these. And in some cases, well, right? But there's some more layers to the itties, right? The next itty we have is called capacity. Right? So we went from capability, which is I can write, to ability, I'm a good writer or a decent writer, right? Capacity refers to whether or not you have the resources or the wherewithal to actually do it. Right? And when I say resources, it's not always finances. Sometimes it's the emotional intelligence. Sometimes it's the mental well-being. Sometimes it's the knowledge, whatever it might be as far as capacity. It determines to the extent to which you can do a thing. Sometimes capacity is the willpower. Do I have the desire to do it? Sometimes like capacity is like, oh yes, I can write, but can you write a book? Right? So capacity for that, think of the example is you have capability, which is I can write, right? I can write something. I can write my name. I can write directions, my address, my phone number. I can write. Capacity is to the extent to which you can do it, right? So that's I can write a book. A lot of people can write. A lot of people can write well, but everybody ain't built to write a book. Okay? On top of that, another layer is the quality to which you can write. Because mind you, a lot of times people you have people who can write, people who can write well, people who can write books, and then people who can write books well, who can be a New York Times bestseller. That's quality. That's how well you can do something, right? So ability is just being able to do it, right? And be able to be decent at it. Like I can perform this. I can do this well. But to write it, as far as being a New York Times bestseller, that's quality. So that means, like, do you have the gift to do it, right? So I can write is capability. I'm a writer. I'm a good writer. I'm a decent writer. That's ability. I can write a book is capacity. But the I can be a New York Times bestseller refers to the quality. And then lastly is vitality. How long can you do it, right? I can be an author, right? Being an author is about writing multiple books, right? So yes, you might be able to write, but can you write well? And if you can write well, are you good enough to write a book? right? And if you're going to write a book, are you good enough to be a New York Times bestseller or to write a quality book? Versus, do you have the vitality and the wherewithal to make it a lifestyle, to have writing to be good enough to write as a lifestyle, right? So that's layers to what you can do. Most people tend to stop at capability and ability. The because I can, I will. Or because there's an opportunity to do it, I should. And that isn't the case, right? And so even for folks who have been asking about what's in the end, well, how do I know if my talents and my passions and my abilities are my purpose? You'll know because you'll be able to perform in all of those. God wouldn't give you a thing that you're not capable of doing, that you don't have the ability to do. Because if you have to stress yourself out about it, if you got to learn 1,000,000 things, and you got to, if it requires you to be outside of yourself, it ain't it, right? He's going to give you the capacity. That's why he says that he doesn't give you a load more than you can bear, right? Quality. Everything you do is blessed, right? Right? If you're called to it, he will empower you for it. And then vitality, he'll give you the idea of endurance, right? He'll make it happen for you, right? And so many a times we confuse the itties with purpose staying alone. Because I have the ability to do this, is purpose. It's like, no, purpose is when you're able to perform all the itties. Right? I think it's so important to acknowledge that even like I happen to use writing as an example, but the itties can apply to anything. Because mind you, many of us have skills and abilities and talents that we even forgot about. There are some things that you were probably doing when you were younger that because of circumstances or situations, just like your lifestyle, you're not doing them anymore. But just because you ain't doing them means you can't. I used to play an instrument. You know what I'm saying? I know people who used to sing and do things and dance. Like I used to do dance ballet. Now, granted, am I a pristine ballet dancer right now? Is that my profession now? No. But you play a certain song, I'm going to show you a little something. It's like once you know it, you know it. And when you're good at it, you're good at it. A person who plays an instrument, even if they haven't played it in a while, you give them that instrument again, it'll start coming back to them. You know? So you probably have some itties in you that you weren't even thinking about. And so being mindful and mind you, even though with that, your itties will change and will evolve. Maybe in this stage in your life, your quality, your capacity, and your vitality is low. Right? But maybe in a particular area. But maybe in 2 years from now, it'll be a little bit higher. That's why it's important to acknowledge that purpose is a oven, not a microwave. Just because it's not right now, don't mean it's not it at all. Right? But again, many of us get caught up in the itties. But the itties are just channels. Right? Remember how I said how purpose is when they all intersect? Because they're just channels. Right? I think about the thing about Mr. Bolcom. Right? He just happened to be a career counselor, and he happened to run this program. But I don't fully think it was about getting kids to school, right? His purpose came from his ability to connect with kids, to build rapport and network. Like all of those itties came together to make this program, right? He had to have the capability to do it, right? So to organize an HBCU tour program, mind you, at that time, now it is a little bit easier now with more technology and the internet, but I mean, granted, we had internet then, but it was still slow, honey. Right? So his ability to build that, right? Him being capable of it, mind you, to have the capacity to see it through. Because I'm pretty sure by the time I was a part of the program, it had been up and running for some time. And so he had to go through the hoops of learning and failing and making mistakes and a bunch of firsts, right? So he had to have the capacity to keep up with that. Right? He had the wherewithal, the resources, that constantly having to do that. The quality being good. You got to think about how many people try to have an HBCU program or even a college program. For it to last as long as it did, it had to be quality. Mind you, I'm a living testament to how well it worked out for me. Not to mention the vitality of what he was able to do, that even in his death, he's remembered. He's remembered. Like I said before, it wasn't about what he did. Because to be honest, maybe I would not have applied to as many schools. Therefore, I wouldn't have gotten as many scholarships and those things. But I would have went to school. I would have found a way to go to school. If you know me, I would have got to school. I would have got me to school. So it wasn't about what he did. Right? We think about purpose being, I'm a teacher, I'm a coach. My purpose is beyond being a professor. His purpose, it was who he was to me. His being, he was someone who saw me, who saw the greatness in me, who called it out of me. It was who he was. And as I reflect on that, even in this moment, I've met a lot of people who do a lot of things. But to me, Mr. Bokum will be the richest man. He is the richest man in the world to me. And not because he had a bunch of money, because he didn't. First of all, they work in education in any capacity. We ain't making no money, for real. And even if we're making money, we ain't making no money. But he's rich because, for me, wealth that's a wealth. To be able to change as many lives. Like, not only did he change my life, but I told y'all he broke generational curses. I'm first gen. So not only did he change my life, but he changed everybody, my entire bloodline. He changed the entire trajectory of my family. And not just my family. Imagine all of the other other students who went through that program with him and their families. And whoever they inspire, whoever they touch. My ability to hop on here and talk to you came from that man. That's purpose. That's purpose. And so for those of y'all who are thinking about purpose being a thing that you do, get that out of your head. Now, don't get me wrong. God might use me being a coach. Again, it's a channel. He uses our abilities and our capabilities and our capacity. He uses all of our itties, our skills, our talents, our passions. But those are simply channels. Your purpose, that's what your being, your existence. Just you being. You never know how many lives you're changing. I told you about how I get DMs and messages all the time. And it's like, yo, you don't think about it. And it'd be the smallest things. People don't even, it's that quote, people will forget what you did, they forget what you said, but they never forget how you treat them, because it's really all about you being. So don't get caught up in the doing. Focus on the being. And in light of Father's Day, I want to take this moment to, in my own special way, to tell Mr. Bokum, Happy Father's Day. Because in that season of my life, you were that. And I will always appreciate you for it. And to every man out there, I didn't do this for Mother's Day, so I'll say both. For all of my men and my women who are moms, dads, godparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, whatever, the people who aren't in your natural family. You know, fathers who are black men out there, not even just black men out there who are fathering and being father figures to kids who aren't their own. May God bless you in ways that you can't even, in more ways than you can receive. Because that's purpose. You're changing lives. Like Mr. Bokum changed mine. So thanks for answering the call. Because this world needs it a lot more than you know. And so before I hop off here, I know you're probably like, all right, Tania, like, where do I go from here? Like, you done told me what purpose ain't. What is it for real, right? I think the key to that, especially for yourself, is the number one. So I want to get more into purpose, and I will. So stay tuned for that. But for right now, a lot of the questions that you may have, it's really about asking yourself in this space, in this season. I think that's something that Andre said a couple weeks ago, in that you want to know what your purpose is, look back at everything that's ever happened in your life. And so that's what my homework is for y'all today. So hopefully you're already doing it, because last week I told y'all to go ahead and start filling in your boxes in regards to your identity. But also, I encourage you, if you have some time this week, to just make a timeline of your life. I do this activity with some of my clients, and I call it the lifeline timeline, where I make them draw out a lifeline and kind of just tell me what they feel like some of their major events of their life were and why were they so important. And so I'm going to give y'all that same task, because that's where it starts. You want to figure out, and you want God to reveal what purpose is for you. Start digging and looking back at what's already happened to you. You know, what were major events, good or bad? What were they? Why? What made them so major? What impact did they have on you? How did they alter your attitude, your beliefs, your behavior, your perspective? How did they change? How did they influence your identity? Right? How do they influence your self-concept, your self-knowledge, your social self, right? Your self-esteem? How did they influence those? And your life, what were your setbacks, your detours? What were those things? But then also, well, what were your accomplishments? What are you good at? What have you always been naturally good at? And not because you went to some fancy school to learn it, but you just like, I don't know how I know, I just know. Again, they're tough questions, but they're questions that I can't answer for you. And I don't care who tells you they can answer them for you. They're full of shit. Don't you ever give them your money. And you tell them that auntie said so. But these are questions that aren't too hard for God, and they aren't too hard for you. And so this week, take a moment, reflect on your life. And again, I promise you, just like with any kind of digging, when you dig, you eventually hit gold. Because there is true treasure here in this journey. I love it. I love what I do. Because, baby, when that shovel finally meets what you've been looking for in that hole, when you be digging, and mind you, digging gets tiring. Honey, like, digging is tiring. But when you start to hit gold, baby, you're going to be like, I love it here. I love it here, and I ain't going back. And so even if it's frustrating right now, let that be encouragement to you that even if it's tough right now, my love, when you get there, when you hit it, not only will it feel good to you, because even though it's not about you, God factors in your passions and your desires, all of that, into his will for your life. So not only will you be fulfilled, but one day you're going to have people like me. And the way I talk about Mr. Bokum and his impact on my life is going to be someone else, somewhere else, talking about you and your impact on them. And so the fact that you're already starting to dig, you're already on your way. And I'm so happy to be a part of this journey with you. And so, as always, love you. Call me back.